Good morning, everyone. Good morning and happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. I am popping in a little impromptu this morning. I was just preparing some content and pulling together some teaching, and I thought I would pop on and share some of that with you this morning. So if you are joining me live, let me just adjust my screen here. I would love it if you could just say hello. Hey, Joanne. Let me know that you are here. Give me a wave, drop an emoji, and we will get started in just a moment. So, if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to the EQ Lab. I don't always go live on Tuesdays, but today there was a teaching that I really wanted to share because it is a question that has been coming up quite a bit lately. It's been coming up through some of the private coaching that I do, as well as through different members of our community. So I thought I would just pop on and do a bit of teaching and a bit of coaching and a little bit of support on this particular topic. So if this is the first time we are meeting, my name is Dr. Shamla. I spent the last 2 decades as a registered psychotherapist and registered couple and family therapist, and I've transitioned to working as a relationship strategist, specifically with high performing women. So I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Today, I want to talk with you about how to self regulate even when you feel out of control. And I really thought this particular concept was really important to address the idea of self regulation, particularly when we're feeling out of control. And the reason I thought this was so important for us to look at and for us to actually dialogue around and have some strategies around is because we know that our ability to self regulate goes down when we feel out of control, right? So, when there are circumstances that are outside of our control, perhaps when we're in a situation that is causing a certain amount of distress, when we are faced perhaps with a new situation, or, there are multiple people involved in whatever it is that we're dealing with. But anytime our locus of control feels like it is outside of us and really beyond us, what happens is it becomes really, really difficult to self regulate. And so, one of the questions that I get asked often in my work is, well, Shamla, I understand the importance of self-regulation. I understand, how to do it. I understand, how it allows me to really soothe my anxiety and build my confidence. But where I get really, really stuck is, when things are really out of control for me, how do I remain calm? How do I remain confident? And ultimately, that comes back to self regulation, right? So, the ability to remain calm and the ability to remain confident and move through our situations with ease comes back to our ability to self regulate. So that's really what I want to dive in today. And if you have any questions or any comments, I want you to simply drop them below this video for me. So let me start by saying this. One of our greatest human needs is to have some control over our lives. So this is just core to who we are, right? I think as human beings, we are wired to look for control. We are constantly looking for ways that we can control, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we are controlling. What I mean by that is that we look for ways to really feel competent in our lives, to feel like we're able to make decisions, that we're able to drive our choices, and that we have some ability to impact our future. So this need for control is very natural, it's very normal, and in fact, I would say it's a very healthy part of who we are. But we also need to know how to balance that, right? And if you think about it, the idea of losing control is often one of the most distressing experiences that we might have. So I want you to think about your own life. I want you to think about perhaps a time in your life where it felt like the rug perhaps was being pulled from under you, or perhaps that there were so many factors involved in a particular area of your life that were really outside of your control. And I want you to identify for yourself what that was like. What was it like to feel like you are really out of control in any particular area in your life, right? And remind yourself of the level of distress that that can cause. I want that to form sort of the context for our conversation today, because what I really want is for you to understand that despite circumstances being outside of your control, despite there being things that perhaps factors that you can't necessarily change directly, that you still have a really deep need as a human being to find some sense of confidence, competence, and congruence in those situations for yourself. So, what happens when we're not able to do that is that we can get stuck in a really negative mindset, right? So, when things feel like they're out of control for us, what typically happens is that we get stuck in a negative mindset. And when we get stuck in a negative mindset, this then fuels that idea of feeling out of control, right? So that negative mindset leads to us feeling even more out of control, sorry. And then it leads to three things in particular. And these are the three things that I see cropping up time and time again for the clients that I work with, especially when they are truly feeling out of control, when their mindset is bogged down with negative thinking. These three areas, or these three issues rather, seem to crop up and wreak even more havoc on the situation. So the three areas are self doubt, procrastination, and a lack of progress towards our goals. So let me just unpack these a little bit before we move into some solutions. So often what happens is, when we are feeling like we cannot identify things that are within our control, or when we are feeling like choices are being taken away from us, or when we feel backed in a corner in certain areas in our life. It could be a particular situation, it could be a season in our life. I know a lot of people have really been struggling this past year with everything that is going on and the impact that that is having on our ability to make choices for ourselves. One of the first things that I notice really creeps in is self doubt. Self doubt begins to creep in because when we feel like we don't have a locus of control in our lives and we're not able to action things, we begin to doubt ourselves. We begin to doubt our own competence. I know I've been there. We begin to doubt our ability to actually manage the situation with ease. We begin to doubt that there are even options or solutions for us. So that's the first thing that happens. The next thing that I notice when we are stuck in a negative mindset and when we're feeling truly like we don't have a sense of control over our lives is it can lead to procrastination. And I see this over and over again. When we get really stuck in that idea or we get really stuck in that mindset that I've got no options, I have very limited or no control over what's going on in my life right now, we tend to procrastinate. We tend to put off even those small things that can really make a difference. We tend to put off perhaps those acts of self care that can actually allow us to show up as a better version of ourselves. And so procrastination really does begin to seep in. And this has a really significant impact on our mindset, right? It has a significant impact on our mindset. So self doubt and procrastination. The next thing that I notice, and really the next thing is sort of tied in to the first two that I just named, and it's a lack of progress towards our goals. So, one of the things I notice, particularly with some of the high performing women that I work with, is that when we feel limited, in terms of what's within our control, when we feel really confined, when we feel stuck in a box, if you will, what happens is first that self doubt creeps in, then this procrastination begins to take place and it begins to sort of wreak havoc in our lives. And then finally, what I notice is the impact of all of this is there's often a lack of progress towards our goals. We sort of stop. We become really stagnant in terms of moving things forward. We stop taking action. And it's almost as if we become immobilized with this idea that I have very little control over the choices in my life or over certain actions or whatever it is. And so this then, of course, increases our inability to self regulate. So, what I mean by that is it actually makes it harder for us to remain calm, to remain confident, and to really dial in those skills, the mindset skills that are required to build mental and emotional resilience. So let's move into what we can actually do about this. How can we actually shift some of this narrative? How can we change this dynamic? So, the key to regaining control or maintaining a sense of control, particularly I would say when you are a high achiever, is to master the art of self regulation. And I can't say that enough. I have to say that. Um, I've been practicing this work professionally for almost 2 decades. And if you know my story at all, particularly in the last decade since becoming a mom, my own ability to practice what I preach has become really, really important to me. My own ability to actually execute on and action the skills that I teach and I coach and I preach to my clients. I've realized how critical they are to my own well being and my ability to show up for the people that matter the most to me. And I reference my daughter just because she's 11, sorry. And, that was a real turning point for me in realizing that I really needed to put in a concerted effort to up level on some of these skills. And so the first and most foundational and most important skill, I would say, in terms of really executing at our fullest potential and in terms of being able to show up as our best selves for the people that matter most, is self regulation. It is the ability to remain calm, it is the ability to remain cool, if you will. It is the ability to find your sense of confidence despite external circumstances. So, there might be a myriad of different definitions for self regulation. The way I see self regulation as a practical skill that really does allow us to optimize our functioning is the one that I just shared. For me, it is the ability to remain calm despite external circumstances. And that's so important because we know that we often don't have control of external circumstances or of outcomes. We can influence them, but we often don't have control of external circumstances. So, our ability to remain calm, regardless of what's happening around us, is going to be absolutely critical in terms of our ability to not only navigate life with ease, but to truly consistently find that deep sense of confidence. So, I want to give you four practical ways that you can practice remaining calm, remaining cool, and remaining collected, regardless of what's going on in your life. And I say practice because none of this happens overnight. And in fact, I really do believe that it's one of these daily practices. And if we fall out of practice, our mental resilience muscle weakens. And so it is a consistent practice. So let's dive into the four strategies today. So, number one is to have a regular grounding practice. Have a regular a practice that grounds you, right? That allows you to collect yourself, that allows you to center yourself, that allows you to connect with truly who you are at your core, and that allows you to, in a way, disengage from the stresses that are outside of you. So, what does a regular grounding practice look like? It could be something as simple as daily movement. I know for myself and for many of my clients, walking on a daily basis can become your grounding practice. This can be the moment in your day where you are being really conscious of your thoughts, where you are being very conscious of remaining connected to your breath and your body, and you are actually being intentional about not allowing your thoughts to flood you, not allowing your emotions to flood you. And the rhythmic movement of walking, let's say, or running, or cycling, or swimming, all these rhythmic sorts of movements can really help to ground us both physiologically and psychologically. Another practice could be meditation, it could be journaling, it could be prayer. The most important thing here is for you to select a daily grounding practice that you're actually going to use, right? So you've got to find something that fits within your lifestyle that you know you're actually going to execute on, and it becomes part of your day. Becomes part of your routine, just like brushing your teeth, right? Brushing your teeth is probably part of your regular routine. You don't really think about it, it just happens. What I want you to do is find a regular grounding practice that you can engage in on a daily basis, so that the idea of self-regulation is something that you are practicing not just when you are in crisis, but on a moment to moment basis. The next tip is to practice daily. And I've alluded to this just now, not just in crisis. One of the things I tell my clients all the time is, guys, we do not practice emotional intelligence skills just when we are in crisis. Because if we wait until we are in crisis to practice these skills, it will never happen. It is almost impossible to self regulate only when you are in crisis if you don't have a regular practice that allows you to find that deep sense of confidence, that sense of calm, and that ability to really soothe your anxiety. So practice daily, not just when you're in crisis. My third tip is to build your responsive muscles rather than your reactive muscles. Build your responsive muscles rather than your reactive muscles. So, what's the difference between responsiveness and reactiveness? Reactiveness is quick, right? It happens in an instant. It's that automatic reaction that we have to an external stressor. Some automatic reactions are really positive. We could automatically react with joy, for example, when our, partner or child gives us a hug. Right? We could automatically react with joy. For example, I do this when my dog comes over to snuggle with me, right? So there are some healthy, positive reactions that happen automatically, but we can also train our brain to fire with these negative reactions and these reactions that become really, really problematic to us. So we actually need to, all of us, I believe, retrain our brains so that we are building our responsiveness muscles rather than our reactive muscles. So responsiveness requires you to slow down. It requires you to take stock of your thought process. It requires you to actually choose a response. You're choosing a response rather than your reaction being automatic. And my fourth and final tip is to slow down to have focused impact. What do I mean by this? One of the most common things that happens when we are feeling dysregulated and when we feel like things are out of control is that we can move in a frenzied state. We can move quickly. We can sort of rush through things. We can feel that anxious energy can cause us to move very, very quickly through the tasks that we have in front of us or the situations that are troubling to us. So, one of the things I really want to encourage you to do is when you are feeling dysregulated, when you are feeling like things are out of control, when you are feeling like it's really, really difficult to access that sense of calm, that sense of confidence, that sense of ease that we're all looking for, I want you to actually slow down. And when we slow down, what happens is that we allow ourselves the space and the capacity to have a more focused impact when it comes to our decision making. As a little girl, I remember I'm someone who rushes. I rush through a lot of things. That just comes very naturally for me. I'm an action taker. I like to move quickly. I like to knock things off my to-do list. And as a little girl growing up, my dad saw this tendency in me. And one of the things he would say to me is, and it still stayed with me, and I actually repeat this phrase often. He would say to me, slow and steady wins the race. He would always say that to me, Sham, slow and steady wins the race. And I still remember those words. And I actually often use those words with my clients and I use them with my team is that slowing down allows us to go deeper, right? Allows us to go deeper. And slower is often faster at achieving long term change. I'm going to say that again because I think it's really, really important. Moving slower at times is often faster at allowing us to achieve long term change, long term results, and really be able to maintain that change. And I believe that's really what we are all looking for. We are all looking for solutions, strategies, and skills that will allow us to have that deeper transformation. And so, if you long for that deeper transformation, if you long to really shift, like really shift, transform the way that you are showing up in your life, transform the way that you are executing professionally, transform the way that you are engaging personally, really shifting the way that you personally show up in every area of your life. I want to really encourage you to focus on the art, the science, the skills, and the strategies of self regulation. And if you are listening to this, I'm going to make a guess. I'm going to make this assumption that you are someone who wants to show up as your best self. You want to execute at your fullest and your wildest capacity. And one of the greatest skills that you can have in your tool belt, and one of the greatest strategies that you can continue to action, truly is the ability to remain self regulated, particularly when life is feeling out of control. All right. I really hope that this was helpful. If you've got any questions, any comments, I want you to let me know, and I will see you in the next one.